A few weeks back, I finally completed Crash Bash. It wasn't my first time playing the game, but it was my first time 200%ing it. And as always, after completing the Crash games, I'm making a top 5 hardest Relics video because they are usually the most difficult content to beat in a Crash game. At least Platinum Relics are, and while they do function differently in Crash Bash, given that it's a completely different type of game, it doesn't really matter because the Platinum Relics are still the most difficult kind of content in this game, despite them working a bit differently here. Just remember though that this list was based on a playthrough where I played as Dingodile. Since the characters have different stats, some of them are better than others at certain minigames, and that will of course affect how difficult I found some of the minigames. Now for those of you that have played Crash Bash but never even attempted the Platinum Relics, let me just explain what you have to do to actually earn them here. There's Gold Relics and Platinum Relics in Crash Bash. For Gold Relics you need to win a minigame twice in a row. For the Platinum Relics it's the same thing but 3 rounds. It's almost like a trophy, but you're not allowed to lose in between. 3 victories in a row to earn the relic, and the AI in these Platinum Relic challenges is much tougher. Now I'm going to start off with one honorable mention, that being Swamp Fox. Yes, based on my playthrough of the Gold Relic, or the trophy, or the gem, pretty much everything actually, you might have expected this to not only make the top 5, but also take the number 1 spot. The thing is, the Platinum didn't take me nearly as long as some of the others on this list, and there was one attempt where I was on my 3rd round, final 10 seconds of the round, going against Tiny, and we both destroyed each other at the final second, so it didn't count. I pretty much had to complete this one twice, and one of the things that I love about this relic is that the CPU purposely drive into the mines that you drop. It's not a rare occurrence or anything like that, they actually just drive into your mines all the time. They will go out of their way to hit your mine. You really start to appreciate things like that when it comes to Platinum Relics, because winning 3 rounds in a row is brutal. So if there's anything that can actually take your enemies out easily, then you start to enjoy the level a little bit more. That's why it's not making the list. At one point I thought it'd be the final Platinum Relic that I attempt, but I tackled it much earlier than I thought I would. Right, at number 5 we have Dot Dash. Dot Dash is the first Crash Dash minigame, which means it's pretty basic compared to the others in the later warp rooms. There's no hazards or toxic barrels, no volcano or anything like that, but that's actually what makes this so difficult. There's nothing to stop the CPU from absolutely destroying you. Like in Toxic Dash, they always crash into the barrels at the beginning, always, or they get hit by the slime monsters, and it makes it so much easier to stay ahead of them. The worst part about this one is that if you get pushed off the edge just once, you'll be targeted by every missile currently on the map, and if they don't have a missile, they'll ram into you as you're spawning on the track. How is that even fair though? Dude, why am I even playing this game? This happens in all of them, but it definitely happens the most in Dot Dash. You will experience the pain of being hit 5 or 6 times in a row, and it makes this minigame awful to play for a Platinum. The only saving grace this one has is that it can be easy to boost around thanks to its barrier on one half of the track. It still takes a bit of time to get used to, but it did help me finally get the Platinum. But when there's like a 20-second stretch of you just being knocked off constantly and not being able to drive or do anything, it's miserable. At number 4 we have Polar Panic. This is a ranking that may have been affected by my character choice, since Dingodile is pretty shit at this minigame. I have similar reasoning here to Dot Dash. It's the first Polar Push minigame, so everything is very basic. In Tilt Panic, the arena will often eliminate the CPU for you, or make it very easy to push them off, even with a character that doesn't have good stats for this minigame. Manic Panic has items like the bomb, which means you can just win without pushing at all, and I did struggle on Melt Panic quite a bit, but I felt like a lot of that was due to bad gameplay. In Polar Panic, there's nothing to help you, and you have to deal with the annoying ice barrier before you can even think about pushing them off. I tried destroying as much of it as possible at the start, just so there's a bit of space for them to actually fall off. In this one, there's nothing to help you out, and you have this huge ice barrier that oftentimes just makes the game go on for way longer than it should do. Again, I think I failed Melt Panic more, but watching it back, it wasn't the greatest gameplay, even with Dingodile. That level also has Uka Uka freezing the CPU, I believe, with his laser, and shrinking the arena, so there's definitely things there that can help you out, more than Polar Panic. At number 3 we have N-Ballism. While I was doing this, I wouldn't even think about ranking this anywhere other than first place as the worst Platinum Relic. but it turns out I'd rather play this one again before the next two. Endballism is hands down the hardest ballistics minigame in Crash Bash. What it really comes down to is engines spawning in the middle every now and then just to spew out a bunch of balls. Not only are they just hard to react to, while also focusing on the other balls that were in the arena before he even spawned in, but he also acts as a wall sitting in the middle of the arena. Oftentimes you'll deflect a ball, it'll hit him and then go straight back into your own goal. So you have to try and bounce them off to the side, which is just an extra bit of difficulty, and of course you have the CPU who like to deflect them straight back to your side. It's really funny because in a lot of these mini games, it's clear that the game picks one character to do much better than everyone else. There is a force field item that helps out a bit, but most of the time you won't have it because the CPU start moving over to it instantly, almost like they know where it is before it spawns. The combination of the Platinum Relic AI, engine in the middle, and them having shields all the time makes this a miserable experience to win 3 times in a row on. But not as miserable as my number 2 pick, which is Pogo Padlock. Some of you might not understand this choice. I think a lot of you would rather play this than Endballism, for example. So let me try to explain why I don't like this one. It's boring, and I'm not good at it. This minigame in itself is one of my least favorites to begin with because I really just don't enjoy the gameplay of hopping around until the time runs out. I just find it boring. A lot of the other minigames end early when everyone is eliminated or a certain point limit has been reached, but here you have to play until the time runs out or exit out and go through all the loading screens again because there's no restart button. But Pogo Padlock is the worst iteration of this minigame. Firstly, if you step on a square that you've already painted, it completely resets all of your tiles that you've painted at that current moment. It's really annoying when you have to rely on a purple crate to spawn near you to deposit your squares, and if they spawn nowhere close to you or in areas that you've already painted, there's not much you can do. Speed shoes are pretty much required for a victory as well, so it really sucks when they don't spawn anywhere close to you because it just means that the CPU are going to beat you to the majority of purple crates and items, unless you get lucky with them spawning next to you. If you hit a missile on the enemy, it will steal all of their current squares, which is really nice and one of the things that you can utilize for a victory. Shoot an NPC and pray that a crate spawns right next to you afterwards. That's really what I relied on sometimes. A lot of times though, this goes the other way and you just get hit by missile after missile, or you're about to deposit like 30 tiles and you get hit just before you hit the purple crate. Like, I'm sorry, but I can play as good as I can, but when I get shot at every fucking possibility, every single moment, a lot of this is RNG based. You will have games that go incredibly smooth and you win by a landslide because the spawns are nice to you. Of course, you can develop some skill to make it a bit easier, but a lot of the times, if nothing is spawning nearby, the CPU will just dominate you. And again, the gameplay, for me, isn't fun to play at all, which is why I'd rather play Endballism before doing this again. And finally, at number 1, the worst Platinum Relic for me in Crash Bash was Splash Dash. I didn't think this one would be top 5 when I was completing the gold relics, but here we are. This level is seriously the worst. The hazard in this one is the metal rods that poke out every now and then, which seem to cause more problems for you than they ever do for the CPU. They're not that hard to avoid, but every now and then you'll just be in the wrong spot at the wrong time and it will inevitably push you off. The one thing we need to address, however, is the fact that the CPU can completely skip laps, which isn't exclusive to Splash Dash, but it does happen a lot more here than in any of the others. The best way of seeing this is at the very beginning of a round. Occasionally you'll see one of them have a lap taken off their total at the very start. It has something to do with the collision around the finish line, so because everyone is grouped together at the start, it happens there a lot. But it can happen at any point during a race, like here where the metal rod was actually the thing that caused the skip. Even I got the skip here, but I didn't realize it because what's even crazier is that Koala Kong skipped 4 entire laps and still lost. Another fantastic example of this is how Tiny was ahead of me here entering the final lap, so I pushed him off the edge. I went around the final lap while he was off the edge, and just as I was about to win, because of the way he was pushed off and the way he spawned back on, it counted as an entire lap for him, and I lost. So yes, in a Platinum Relic where you have to win 3 times in a row and the CPU can skip laps at any point in the race, it becomes infuriating very quickly. In one of my final rounds for the Platinum Relic, Rilla skipped 2 entire laps at the start. This is why it takes the #1 spot for me. And yes, this does happen whether you emulate the game or play it on an actual PS1. But that being said, you can let me know down below what your personal top 5 ranking is for Crash Bash Platinum Relics. I suspect it will be somewhat similar. I think there'll be certain levels that just appear on everybody's list. But I think there's definitely a few on mine that people probably wouldn't decide to put in their top 5. That being said, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Definitely subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you all in my next video.